Commander Vexahol stood before the massive viewing screen on his warship. His 6 arms moved across the control panel as he watched the blue and green planet below. Earth looked peaceful from space, too peaceful for his liking. Another week. "Species," he said to his second-in-command. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "They will break just like the others." The Korthic Empire had ruled the galaxy for 300 years. They had a simple way of taking over new worlds. First, they would drop their war beasts on the planet. Then they would wait for the screaming to start. It never took long. Vexahol looked at the cages behind him. Inside were dozens of creatures. That made grown warriors shake with fear. The razor claws were his greatest weapons. Each beast stood 8 feet tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. Their skin was dark green and covered in thick scales. Sharp claws extended from their 6 legs. Their teeth could cut through metal, but the claws and teeth were not the worst part. The worst part was their intelligence. Razor claws could think, plan, and hunt in groups. They could open doors, climb buildings, and track their prey for miles. The Korthak had spent generations making them perfect killers. "Begin the drop," Vexahol ordered. Across Earth's major cities, strange objects began falling from the sky. People stopped on sidewalks and pointed up at the burning streaks of light. Some thought they were meteors. Others grabbed their phones to take pictures. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when his communication device started buzzing. He worked for the Earth Defense Force, but most days were quiet. Humanity had only made contact with aliens 5 years ago, and so far they had been peaceful traders. "Morrison here," he answered. "Sir, we have multiple reports of unidentified objects landing in major cities worldwide," came the voice of his assistant, Lieutenant Mike Stevens. "Chicago, New York, London, Tokyo, all the same pattern." Jake set down his coffee. "Any casualties?" That's the strange part, sir. The objects aren't exploding. They seem to be some kind of delivery pods." "Delivery pods for what?" Before Mike could answer, Jake's phone rang. The caller ID showed Amy Rodriguez, a Marine lieutenant stationed in Chicago. Amy had served 3 tours overseas and was not someone who scared easily. "Jake, you need to see this," Amy said. Her voice was tense. "Something came out of those pods, something big." "What kind of something?" "I don't know what to call it. It looks like a giant lizard mixed with a bug. It's got 6 legs and claws. That could cut a car in half." "But Jake, that's not the weird part." Jake waited. Amy did not usually pause during reports. "The weird part is that it's just sitting there. It landed 20 minutes ago, and it hasn't moved. It's just looking around like it's lost." Similar reports came in from around the globe. The creatures were emerging from their pods, but not attacking immediately. Military forces surrounded the landing sites, waiting for orders. News crews arrived and started broadcasting live footage of the strange beasts. Dr. Lisa Chin was watching the news from her veterinary clinic when the first razor claw appeared on her street. She had been treating a sick cat when the building shook from the impact. Through her window, she could see the massive creature standing in the middle of the road. Cars had stopped. People were running, but the beast was not chasing them. Instead, it was making a low, rumbling sound that seemed almost sad. Lisa had spent 15 years working with animals. She knew the difference between aggression and distress. This creature was not preparing to attack. It was crying. Back on his ship, Vexahol watched the reports with growing confusion. His war beasts should have been tearing through the cities. By now, instead, they were just standing around like lost pets. "Perhaps they need time to orient themselves," suggested his second-in-command. "Razor claws do not need time," Vexahol snapped. "They are programmed to kill on sight. Something is wrong." In Chicago, Amy Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. Against all military protocol, she approached the razor claw on foot. Her squad members called for her to stay back, but she ignored them. The creature turned its massive head toward her as she got closer. Its yellow eyes were the size of dinner plates. Amy could see intelligence in those eyes, but also something else. Fear. "Easy there, big guy," she said softly, the same way she talked to scared dogs at the animal shelter where she volunteered. Nobody's going to hurt you. The razor claw tilted its head. It took a small step backward. Amy noticed something the news cameras had missed. The creature had scars along its sides. Old scars, like it had been in many fights. But there were also fresh marks that looked different. These were straight lines, too precise to be from battle. They looked like they came from needles or medical tools. What did they do to you? Amy whispered. On the ship above, Vexel was losing patience. Activate the combat stimulants, he ordered. Remote injection, maximum dose. His technician pressed a series of buttons. All across Earth, the razor claws received chemical injections through implants in their necks. The drugs were designed to make them aggressive and eliminate their ability to feel fear or pain, but something unexpected happened. Instead of becoming more violent, many of the creatures became more agitated. Some began clawing at their own necks, trying to remove the implants. Others started making sounds that could only be described as whimpering. In New York, a razor claw that had been standing quietly suddenly roared in pain and collapsed. Witnesses described it as looking like the creature was fighting against something. Inside its own body, Amy Rodriguez saw her razor claw stumble and shake its head violently. The beast looked directly at her, and she could see something in its eyes that made her heart break. The creature was asking for help. "This is Rodriguez," she said into her radio. "I need a medical team down here. Something is seriously wrong with these animals." "Animals?" came the reply from her commander. "Rodriguez, those are weapons of war." Amy looked at the razor claw again. It had stopped shaking and was now lying on its side, breathing heavily. "No, sir," she said quietly. "They're victims." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Humans who had expected to face monsters found themselves looking at creatures in distress. The galaxy's most feared war beasts were not conquering Earth. They were suffering on it. And for the first time in 300 years, someone was treating them with kindness instead of fear. Dr. Lisa Chun had seen many hurt animals in her 15 years as a veterinarian, but she had never seen anything like this. The razor claw lay on its side in the parking lot behind her clinic. It had been there for 6 hours now, barely moving. Lisa watched from her window as the massive creature's chest rose and fell in an uneven rhythm. Every few minutes, it would make a soft whining sound that reminded her of a dog having nightmares. "You should stay away from that thing," her assistant, Nurse Betty Walsh, said from behind her. "The news says they're dangerous." Lisa did not answer. She was too busy studying the creature's behavior. In her experience, truly dangerous animals did not lie around making sad noises. They either attacked or ran away. This razor claw was doing neither. "I'm going out there," Lisa said finally. "Dr. Chun, that's crazy." But Lisa was already putting on her coat. She had spent her career helping animals that could not help themselves. This was no different. She walked slowly toward the razor claw, carrying her medical bag. The creature lifted its huge head when it saw her coming. Its yellow eyes tracked her movement, but it made no attempt to stand up. "Hello there," Lisa said softly. "What's wrong with you?" As she got closer, Lisa could see the creature more clearly. The scars she had noticed on television were worse in person. Some were old, but others looked recent. The worst ones were around its neck, where some kind of device had been implanted under the skin, but it was the creature's eyes that told the real story. Lisa had seen those same eyes in abused animals. They held pain, confusion, and something else that made her heart ache. The razor claw was looking at her like it wanted help but did not know how to ask for it. "Oh, you poor thing," Lisa whispered. "What did they do to you?" 3 miles away, 10-year-old Ben Parker was supposed to be in his basement with his family. The government had told everyone to stay inside and hide until the military could deal with the alien creatures. But Ben had never been good at following rules. He slipped out through the kitchen door while his parents were watching the news. In the backyard, he could see one of the creatures sitting under their old oak tree. This one was smaller than the others he had seen on television. It was curled up in a ball with its tail wrapped around its body. Ben was not scared. He had always been good with animals. His dog, Max, had been rescued from an abusive home and had been afraid of everyone when they first brought him home. But Ben had been patient, and now Max was his best friend. The Razorclaw looked up when Ben approached. Its eyes were red and swollen, like it had been crying. "Hey there," Ben said, sitting down a few feet away. "Are you sad?" The creature made a soft clicking sound. Ben noticed something on the ground beside it. Another Razorclaw, but this one was not moving. It was lying on its side with its eyes closed. "Oh no," Ben said. "Is that your friend?" "The living." Razorclaw looked at its dead companion and made a sound that was definitely crying. Ben had heard the same sound from Max when they passed the spot where Max's brother had been hit by a car. "I'm sorry about your friend," Ben said. "That must hurt a lot." Ben slowly moved closer. The Razorclaw watched him but did not move away. When Ben was close enough, he reached out very carefully and touched the creature's arm. The skin was warm and softer than he had expected. "My name is Ben," he said. "What's your name?" Of course, the creature could not answer, but it stopped crying and looked at Ben with curiosity instead of sadness. Across town, former dog trainer Rick Sullivan was taking notes from his apartment window. He had trained police dogs for 20 years before retiring, and he knew animal behavior better than most people. What he was seeing made no sense. The Razorclaw in the street below had been there since morning. It kept walking in small circles, stopping every few minutes to look around like it was searching for something. Rick had seen the same behavior in dogs that had been separated from their pack. "This isn't random," Rick said to himself, writing in his notebook. "They're looking for something. Or someone." Rick watched as the creature approached each landing pod in the area, sniffing around the edges. When it did not find what it was looking for, it would make a low howling sound and move to the next pod. Pack behavior, Rick realized. They're looking for their packmates. His theory was confirmed when two Razorclaws finally found each other later that afternoon. The reunion was not violent or aggressive. Instead, the creatures touched their heads together and made soft purring sounds. They stayed close to each other after that, clearly more comfortable in pairs. Rick started making phone calls to his contacts in animal behavior. "We're looking at this all wrong," he told everyone who would listen. "These aren't weapons running on programming. They're social animals that have been separated from their families?" At the military command center, Colonel Steve Adams was not interested in theories about animal behavior. He had orders to protect the city, and that meant eliminating the threats. "I want all units to engage the creatures at dawn," he told his officers. "We've waited long enough." But Colonel Adams' plan changed when he got home that evening. His 16-year-old daughter, Kate, was not in the house where she was supposed to be. He found her in the backyard, sitting next to one of the largest Razorclaws. He had seen. "Kate," he shouted, "get away from that thing." But Kate did not move. "Dad, look at him. He's hurt." Colonel Adams could see that his daughter was right. The creature had a deep gash along its side that was still bleeding. It was lying down and breathing heavily. "Kate, step away slowly," her father said, drawing his sidearm. "No, Dad, watch." Kate reached into a bucket beside her and pulled out a piece of raw meat from their freezer. She placed it near the creature's mouth. The Razorclaw sniffed the meat but did not eat it. Instead, it looked at Kate and made a soft rumbling sound that almost sounded like "thank you." "He's been like this for hours," Kate said. "I think he's dying, Dad, and he's scared." Colonel Adams had seen enough wounded soldiers to recognize the signs. The creature was indeed dying, and it was suffering. But instead of being aggressive, it was accepting help from a human child. "How long have you been out here?" he asked his daughter. "Since this afternoon. I brought him water too." "Dad, I don't think they want to hurt us. I think they need our help." That night, Colonel Adams called off the morning attack. For the first time since the creatures arrived, he was not sure who the real enemy was. All across Earth, humans were making the same discovery. The galaxy's most feared war beasts were not monsters at all. They were victims far from home and suffering from wounds both physical and emotional. And humanity was beginning to do what it did best. They were trying to help. Dr. Lisa Chun had not slept in 3 days. Her small veterinary clinic had become an unofficial research center for studying the razor claws. She had moved the creature from her parking lot into the large animal treatment room, where it now rested, on specially arranged mattresses. "The blood work is fascinating," she told Tony Walsh, the animal behaviorist who had driven down from the university. Tony specialized in communication between species, and Lisa hoped he could help her understand what was happening to these creatures. Tony looked at the test results with wide eyes. "These chemical levels are insane," he said. "Look at this. Artificial. Adrenaline, synthetic aggression enhancers, and something I've never seen before. What's that last one?" "If I had to guess, it's a compound designed to block emotional attachment. It prevents pack bonding." Tony set down the papers and looked at the razor claw, who was watching them quietly from across the room. "Lisa, these creatures have been chemically turned into killing machines. But the effects are wearing off," Lisa nodded. "That explains the behavior changes. When they first arrived, they seemed confused and lost. But as the chemicals leave their systems, they're becoming more social. More human-like, you mean?" "More like what they were supposed to be naturally." 3 miles away, Ben Parker was having the best week of his life. The razor claw in his backyard had not left since their first meeting. Ben's parents had been worried at first, but the creature had proven to be surprisingly gentle. "I'm calling him Spike," Ben announced to his family over breakfast. "He likes it when I scratch behind his ears." Ben's father, Tom Parker, looked out the window at the massive creature that was currently sunbathing in their garden. "Son, I'm still not sure this is safe." "He won't hurt anyone, Dad? Watch this." Ben walked outside and called, "Spike, come here, boy." The razor claw immediately stood up and walked over to Ben, moving carefully to avoid stepping on the flowers. When it reached Ben, it lowered its huge head so the boy could pet it. "See? He's just like a really big dog." Tom Parker shook his head in amazement. His son had somehow turned a galactic war beast into a pet, but Spike was more than just a pet. Ben discovered this when strange flying objects appeared in the sky that afternoon. They were small, silver discs that moved silently through the air, scanning the neighborhood with blue lights. "What are those?" Ben asked, pointing up. Spike looked at the discs and immediately became agitated. The creature's friendly demeanor changed in an instant. Its claws extended, its muscles tensed, and it made a low growling sound that Ben had never heard before. One of the discs swooped down toward Ben's house. Before Ben could react, Spike leaped into the air with incredible speed and caught the disc in his jaws. There was a cracking sound, sparks flew, and the disc stopped working. "Spike, what was that?" Ben asked, but Spike was already hunting the other discs. The creature moved through the neighborhood like a guided missile, destroying every flying object it could find. Other razor claws in the area seemed to understand what was happening and joined in the hunt. Within an hour, every alien surveillance drone in the city had been destroyed. Marine Chris Martinez watched the destruction from his command post and could not believe what he was seeing. "Sir," he radioed to his commander, "the creatures are attacking the alien drones, not us." "Repeat that, Martinez." "The razor claws are hunting the alien surveillance equipment. They're protecting human areas." At the university, Tony Walsh was working with Rick Sullivan to understand this new development. Rick had been documenting razor claw behavior for days and had noticed the pattern. "It makes sense," Rick explained. "Dogs protect their pack. Cats defend their territory. These creatures are starting to see humans as their new pack." "But why?" Tony asked. "Because we're treating them like family instead of weapons. We're giving them what they need emotionally." The proof came later that evening when the aliens made their first direct move. Commander Vexahal had grown tired of waiting for his war beast to start killing humans. He decided to send down collection teams to retrieve the creatures and find out what was wrong with them. The Korthek soldiers landed in Ben's neighborhood just after dark. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their plan was simple: recapture the razor claws and punish any humans who had interfered. Ben was in his room doing homework when Spike suddenly stood up and moved to the window. The creature's behavior changed completely. Its friendly demeanor disappeared, replaced by something that made Ben step back in fear. Spike? What's wrong? Outside, Ben could see the alien soldiers moving through the yards with strange devices in their hands. The devices were beeping and flashing, clearly designed to control the razor claws, but something unexpected happened. Instead of obeying the control signals, Spike smashed through Ben's bedroom window and attacked the nearest Korthic soldier. The alien never had a chance. Spike moved with deadly precision, using claws and teeth to disable the soldier's armor and weapons. The creature that had been so gentle with Ben became a terrifying predator when facing its former controllers. "Stay inside!" Ben's father shouted. But Ben was already at the broken window. Watching in amazement, all around the neighborhood, similar battles were taking place. Razor claws that had spent days bonding with human families were now fighting to protect those families from the aliens who had abused them. Amy Rodriguez arrived with a military unit just as the fighting ended. She found Ben standing in his yard next to Spike, who was covered in alien technology but unharmed. "Are you okay?" Amy asked. "Spike saved us," Ben said proudly. "He wouldn't let the bad aliens hurt my family." Amy looked at the destroyed Korthak equipment scattered around the yard. "Ben, I think Spike just declared war on his former masters." The same scene played out across the globe. Razor claws that had formed bonds with humans refused to return to alien control. They fought their former handlers and chose to stay with their new families. Dr. Lisa Shun documented everything. "The pack bonding is complete," she told Tony Walsh. "They're not alien war beasts anymore. They're Earth creatures with human families. What happens now?" Tony asked. Before Lisa could answer, her razor claw patient walked over and gently nudged her hand with its massive head. The creature that had been dying in her parking lot was now healthy, happy, and completely loyal to the woman who had saved its life. "Now," Lisa said, scratching behind the creature's ears, "we teach the galaxy what happens when you mess with Earth's extended family." Above the planet, Commander Vexahol watched his collection teams fail one by one. His perfect weapons had turned against him. For the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Commander Vexahol's massive warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling mountain. He had come personally to see what had gone wrong with his perfect conquest plan. According to his reports, the humans should have surrendered weeks ago. Instead, they seemed to be fighting back. "Prepare my armor," Vexahol ordered his guards. "I will lead the ground assault myself." The commander expected to find broken cities and terrified humans begging for mercy. Instead, as his ship approached the landing zone outside Chicago, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Humans were riding his razor claws into battle. "That is impossible," he whispered, staring at the viewing screen. But there they were. Dozens of human soldiers mounted on razor claws, moving in perfect formation across the battlefield. The creatures that had once been his most feared weapons were now carrying human warriors toward his landing ships. Leading the charge was a woman with short, blonde hair wearing modified military gear. Her name was Emma Foster, and 3 weeks ago she had been a zookeeper at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Now she commanded the first Razorclaw cavalry unit in human history. "Attack formation!" Emma shouted, holding tight to the riding harness she had designed for her Razorclaw partner, a massive creature she called Thunder. Remember, they can't hurt what they don't understand. Emma had spent her career working with large predators. When the razor claws arrived, she had seen immediately that they were not mindless killing machines. They were intelligent animals that needed leadership and purpose. So she gave them both. The first Korthic ground troops that emerged from the landing ships found themselves facing an enemy they had never imagined. Razor claws that should have been obeying Korthic commands were instead following human riders into combat. "Use the control frequencies," one Korthic officer screamed into his radio. "Force them to obey." But the control frequencies no longer worked. Dr. Den Miller had made sure of that. Don was a biochemist who worked for a pharmaceutical company before the invasion. When Dr. Lisa Chun had shared her research about the chemicals in the Razorclaw's blood, Don had started working on a solution. The key is neutralizing the artificial compounds without harming the natural brain chemistry, Don explained to the military scientists. Think of it like curing a drug addiction, but much faster. Dan's neutralizing agent was delivered through a simple injection. Within hours, it cleared the alien chemicals from a razor claws system and restored their natural emotional responses. More importantly, it made them immune to future chemical control. We've treated over 300 creatures so far, Don reported to Colonel Steve Adams. None of them respond to Korthek control signals anymore. Colonel Adams nodded grimly. His own daughter Kate had been working with Dan to develop the treatment. She had become an expert at calming razor claws during the injection process. How many more can we treat? The colonel asked. As many as we can find, Don replied. But sir, we have a bigger opportunity here. If we can get this treatment to other worlds, we could free razor claws throughout the galaxy. The plan was already in motion. Amy Rodriguez led a special operations team that had captured several Korthek transport ships. Inside those ships, they found cages full of razor claws being transported to other conquest targets. These creatures have been traveling for months, Amy reported after examining the ships. They're weak, scared, and completely dependent on the chemical control systems. Perfect, said Emma Foster, who had joined the mission. Weak and scared means they'll respond well to kindness. Amy and Emma worked together to treat the captured razor claws with Dan's neutralizing agent. The results were immediate and dramatic. Creatures that had been listless and aggressive became alert and curious. They showed interest in their human. Rescuers instead of trying to attack them, but the real breakthrough came when Ben Parker arrived with Spike. I brought Spike to help, Ben announced, leading his massive companion into the transport ship. He can talk to them. Ben was right. Spike immediately began communicating with the newly freed razor claws through a series of sounds, gestures, and sent signals that humans were only beginning to understand. Whatever Spike told them, it worked. The rescued creatures began showing the same protective loyalty toward humans that Spike displayed. Pack behavior, Rick Sullivan observed. Spike is teaching them that humans are part of their family now? Commander Vexahol watched his invasion force crumble from his command ship. His ground troops were being overwhelmed by creatures that should have been on his side. His control systems were useless. His tactical advantage had become his greatest weakness. How are they doing this? He demanded from his tactical officer. Unknown, Commander. The war beasts are not responding to any of our control methods. They appear to be cooperating with the humans voluntarily. That is impossible, Vexahol roared. Nothing cooperates voluntarily. Everything is either dominant or submissive. But that was exactly the problem. The Korthek Empire had built their entire civilization on the idea that all relationships were about power and control. They had never encountered a species that formed partnerships based on mutual benefit and affection. Sir, came a panicked voice over the radio, the humans have breached our perimeter. They're heading straight for the command center. Through his viewing screen, Vexahol could see Emma Foster's cavalry unit charging toward his position. The sight was terrifying and impossible. Humans and razor claws moving as one, fighting side by side against their former masters. Retreat to orbit, Vexahol ordered. We will bombard the planet from space, but even that plan failed. As his ships tried to leave Earth's atmosphere, they found their path blocked by human spacecraft. Somehow, in just a few weeks, the humans had learned to coordinate with their new razor-claw allies to defend their planet. Commander, his navigation officer reported, long-range sensors are detecting similar activities on other worlds. Our razor-claw forces on 17 different planets have stopped responding to commands. Vexahol felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of conquest. His empire was falling apart, and it was all because of one simple thing. The Korthak had never understood friendship on the ground below. Ben Parker was teaching a group of newly freed razor claws how to play fetch with a tennis ball. Spike watched proudly as his new packmates learned to trust and enjoy the company of their human partners. You know what the best part is? Ben said to Amy Rodriguez, who was documenting the interaction for military intelligence. They're not scared anymore. Amy looked at the scene in front of her. Massive creatures that had been designed to terrorize entire worlds were now playing games with a 10-year-old boy. It was the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. No, she agreed, they're not scared anymore. But I think someone else is. High above them, Commander Vexahol's ship continued its retreat, carrying news that would shake the galaxy. The Korthik Empire's greatest weapons had become Earth's greatest. Allies, and they were just getting started. The war did not end with a great battle or a peace treaty. It ended with a 10-year-old boy giving a speech to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Ben Parker stood at the center of the new Galactic Council chamber, with Spike sitting proudly. Beside him, representatives from dozens of worlds watched as the small human boy prepared to speak. Many of them were former enemies of the Korthik Empire, planets that had been conquered by Razorclaws and thought they would never be free. "My name is Ben Parker," he began, his voice clear and confident. "And this is my friend Spike. 3 months ago, your governments thought Spike was a monster. Today, I want to tell you why they were wrong." The chamber was completely silent. Even the Korthik prisoners, including Commander Vexel, listened carefully from their seats in the defendant section. "The Korthik Empire made one big mistake," Ben continued. "They thought that making something afraid would make it strong. But being afraid doesn't make you strong. Having friends who care about you makes you strong." Ben reached over and scratched. Behind Spike's ears, the massive Razorclaw made a happy purring sound that echoed through the chamber. "Spike taught me that there are no monsters in the universe. There are only friends that nobody understood yet." The revolution had spread faster than anyone expected. Dr. Dan Miller's neutralizing treatment had been smuggled to 17 different worlds by human volunteers and freed Razorclaws working together. On each planet, the same thing happened. Razorclaws broke free from their chemical conditioning and turned against their Korthik controllers. Captain Jake Morrison had led the final assault on the Korthik homeworld. But it was not really an assault. By the time human ships arrived, the Korthik government had already collapsed. Freed Razorclaws across the galaxy had simply refused to fight anymore. "The strangest thing," Jake reported to Earth Command, "is that the Razorclaws didn't want revenge. They just wanted to go home." That was not entirely true. Some Razorclaws did want justice, but their idea of justice was very different from what the Korthak expected. Spike had been the first to understand this. When Commander Vexahal was captured, many humans expected the Razorclaws to tear him apart. Instead, Spike approached the alien commander and did something that shocked everyone. He forgave him. Spike walked right up to Vexahal, Ben explained to the Galactic Council, and he made this soft humming sound. I asked Dr. Chun what it meant, and she said it was the sound Razorclaws make when they're trying to comfort someone who is scared. Commander Vexahal had indeed been scared. For the first time in his life, he was facing the consequences of his actions. But instead of punishment, he found understanding. "The creature I had tortured for years was trying to make me feel better," Vexahal admitted during his testimony. "I could not understand why." Dr. Lisa Chun had spent months studying Razorclaw behavior and had an answer. "Razorclaws are naturally empathetic creatures," she explained to the council. "They feel the emotions of others and want to help. The Korthik use chemicals to suppress this natural kindness and turn them into weapons." Lisa's research had become the foundation for the new galactic understanding of interspecies relationships. Her veterinary clinic had grown into the first interspecies medical center, where beings from dozens of worlds came to learn about caring for different types of life. "The most important thing we learned," Lisa told her students, "is that every species has something valuable to offer. We just have to listen to them." Rick Sullivan had become famous throughout the galaxy for his Razorclaw training manual, but the title was misleading. The book was not about training Razorclaws, it was about understanding them. "You cannot train a friend," Rick wrote in the introduction. "You can only learn to communicate with them and respect what they need to be happy." The manual had been translated into 47 languages and was required reading for anyone who worked with Razorclaws. It started with a simple rule: Treat every razor claw like a member of your family, because that is exactly what they are. Emma Foster had established the Galactic Cavalry Corps, a peacekeeping force made up of human razorclaw partnerships. They traveled to worlds where conflicts were happening and helped different species learn to work together. The best way to stop a war, Emma often said, is to show everyone that cooperation is more fun than fighting. Amy Rodriguez had become the first human ambassador to the razorclaw home planets. She discovered that razorclaws had their own rich culture with art, music, and philosophy that had been suppressed by centuries of Korthic control. They have songs? Amy reported in amazement. Beautiful, complex songs about family and friendship and hope. The Korthic never let them sing. Now, razorclaw singing could be heard throughout the galaxy. It was a sound that promoted peace and healing wherever it was played. Tony Walsh and Don Miller had worked together to develop new medicines that could help other species recover from chemical conditioning. Their research showed that many of the galaxy's aggressive species had actually been artificially modified by various conquerors throughout history. We are discovering that most conflicts in galactic history were caused by a few species that did not understand friendship, Tony explained. Now that we know how to undo the chemical modifications, we can help everyone remember how to be kind. But the biggest change was in how the galaxy thought about strength and power. The Korthic Empire had ruled through fear and domination. The new Terran Razorclaw Alliance ruled through something completely different. We do not rule anyone, Ben explained to the Galactic Council. We just help everyone be the best version of themselves. This philosophy had spread to every world in the former Korthic Empire. Instead of conquest and submission, the galaxy now focused on cooperation and mutual aid. Commander Vexahol had been given a choice. He could spend his life in prison, or he could work to undo the damage his empire had caused. He chose to help. I am learning, Vexahol said slowly. That's strength. Comes from building others up, not tearing them down. It is a difficult lesson for someone like me. Vexahol now worked with Dr. Chun to identify other species that had been chemically modified by the Korthek. His knowledge of the Empire's methods was helping to free creatures across the galaxy. Even former enemies can become teachers, Lisa observed. Everyone deserves a chance to choose who they want to be. The ceremony ended with Spike receiving the Medal of Honor for saving Ben's neighborhood from a Korthik bombing run. He was the first non-human to receive the award, but he would not be the last. As Spike wore his medal proudly, Ben made one final statement to the Galactic Council. The Korthik Empire thought that dropping war beasts on Earth would make us surrender. Instead, they gave us the best friends we ever had. They taught us that the galaxy is full of amazing people who just needed someone to believe in them. Ben looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of worlds, many of whom were now working together for the first time in centuries. So thank you, Commander Vexahol, for making the biggest mistake in galactic history. Because that mistake taught everyone that there are no monsters in the universe. There are only friends we have not met yet. The chamber erupted in applause, and for the first time in recorded history, the sound was joined by the peaceful humming of razor claws, who were finally free to sing.